Hello, Dr. Dixon. This is my speaking outline, and this is my visual aid. Picture this, a raven caws in the distance as you walk up the stone steps of the Tower of London. There is a wooden block in front of you, and you have familiarized yourself with it because you have spent the early hours of last night practicing with it in order to die a composed and calm death. You walk up to it and lightly brush your fingertips against the worn wood. You kneel down and place your neck over it, knowing that this is one of the final moments of your life. You see a glint of metal, and you know the axe is rising above you. You have not even reached the age of 22 yet. Suddenly, the axe comes down, and in one swift motion, the execution is finished. The head of Lady Catherine Howard lies in a pool of blood. What could have led to such extreme events? What could have caused a girl at such a young age to be beheaded? Today I will talk about who Catherine Howard was as a person, her affairs that occurred at court and before the time of it, her accomplice at court, and her execution. Catherine Howard came from an aristocratic background and had a unique personality that captured the attentions of King Henry VIII. Hanson, in her article, Catherine Howard, describes Catherine as lively and youthful, a girl who emanated the essence of youth. She also talks about how Lord Edmund Howard was Catherine's father and part of a prominent family in the England period. Jensen, in her article, Howard Catherine, 1521 to 1542, describes Catherine as childish, with a love for lavish items and an enjoyment for pleasing men. Eakins also elaborates in her article, Catherine Howard, No Other Will Than His, that Catherine was the first cousin to Anne Boleyn, who was the king's second wife. Catherine Howard came to court at age 19 to the king's fourth wife, Anne of Cleves, as a lady-in-waiting. This is a picture of her time in court. This was the only surviving picture that represented her time there. King Henry VIII was a prominent ruler in the English period during the Renaissance. He had been married 4 times prior, and his wives had either been executed, divorced, or the marriage was annulled. In 1540, he decided that he wanted Catherine as his wife, and they were married, him at age 49 and her at age 19. What would you do in this situation if your significant other was 30 years older than you, and you were lonely and bored? Now that we have taken a look at Catherine Howard's personality, background, and her time at court, let's take a look at the affairs that occurred before and during her time there. Catherine Howard had engaged in many affairs and committed adultery. Her first affair occurred with Henry Mannix. Hanson elaborates in her article, Catherine Howard, that this relationship occurred at age 15 to her music teacher. Though both people had admitted that they had not consummated this relationship, Mannix was strictly reprimanded for seducing a child at such a young age. Her second affair occurred with Frances Durham. Jensen explains in her article, Howard Catherine, 1521 to 1542, that Durham and Catherine had called each other husband and wife. They had consummated their relationship and intended to get married, which indicated a pre-contract. Though this relationship did not last for long and was found out, Frances Durham was forced to flee to Ireland, and Catherine fell out of love with him. Her third affair occurred with Thomas Culpeper. Eakins elaborates in her article, Catherine Howard, No Other Will Than His, that Catherine had met Culpeper in 1539 when he was part of the king's chambers. They fell in love, and their affair continued through 1540, which was the period that Catherine was married to King Henry VIII. Now that we have talked a bit about the affairs that Catherine had engaged in, let's talk about the accomplice that was involved with the affair that happened at court. Lady Jane Boleyn was the accomplice and encouraged adultery to be committed against the king, along with Catherine's unfaithfulness. According to the article, Jane Boleyn, the infamous Lady Rochford, written by Windenfield and Nicholson, Jane Boleyn had earlier betrayed Anne Boleyn, who was her own sister-in-law. She had caught her sister-in-law cheating with her own husband, in court, and had notified the king of this. The king became enraged and had them both arrested and then executed. Now that we know a bit about the accomplice that had engaged in the court affairs, let's take a look at how this affected the king and led to Catherine's execution. Levine, in her article, Royal Mothers, talks about how the king finds out this information and is enraged in 1541. Once he finds out about Catherine's affair with Culpeper, he has them both arrested and orders for their beheadal, along with the beheading of Lady Jane Boleyn. Jensen, in her article, Catherine Howard, 1521 to 1542, talks about how Catherine denies the charges of adultery between Durham and Culpeper, but is not believed. Later, she is demoted as queen and stripped of her rights, and then imprisoned. In the article Catherine Howard by Hanson, it talks about how Catherine had requested that the execution block be brought to her in order for her to practice her execution and to die with composed grace. Though Lady Jane Boleyn, Durham, and Culpeper were all executed at earlier dates, Catherine Howard was executed on February 13, 1542. Now that we have taken a look at how her execution affected the king and what led to it, we know a lot about her life. The love affairs that occurred before and during her time at court, along with the help of Lady Jane Boleyn, led to her execution. Not even the king's love for her or her aristocratic background could save her from this dire fate. Even after she was executed, though, her name is still identified with her status as King Henry VIII's fifth wife. In conclusion, the life of Catherine Howard was filled with numerous events, such as affairs, court life, and the marriage to the king. Her circumstances allowed her to go to court, and her marriage to the king made her England's queen. Accomplices such as Lady Jane Boleyn allowed for Catherine's unfaithfulness to go unnoticed for as long as possible. In the end, her adultery led to her execution and beheading that was ordered by her own husband. This was the life of Catherine Howard, England's fifth queen of Henry VIII. Thank you.